Greetings, Earthlings. Today we're reviewing an audio interface from Aphex. What in the world? So today we're looking at this guy, the Aphex IN2 High Performance Desktop Audio Interface. And if you do want to pick up this guy, it'll set you back around $200. Like always, I'll throw some links down below. Now for this review, I will be running the Rode NT1 direct into the IN2 with 48 volts phantom power turned on and my gain set at about 1130. I'm not going to do any kind of post-processing, but I may boost it in post, so check the doobly-doo to see what I did. Now let's talk about what comes in the box. I hope you're happy, Cheryl. Of course, you will get the audio interface, you'll get the required USB cable, you will also get the required power cable as well as some international adapters, you'll get some documentation, and you'll get a CD which has the drivers for your Windows PC as well as the free versions of Reaper and Harrison Mixbus. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find an easy way to download the free software from their website, so unless you still have a CD player, chances are you would have to email them or just make do without it. But you can still download the latest drivers from their website. Then as far as the build quality, this thing feels absolutely incredible. It has an all-metal chassis which feels very sturdy and nice to the touch. The dials are maybe the sturdiest that I've ever felt on an interface at this price point. There is minimal wobble to the connections, which is always great to see, and the buttons don't have too much tactile feedback, but it's clear when you have pressed them, so that's good as well. Then as far as the features, on the top of the interface you will find a headphone volume control, which will obviously control the volume of the headphone output. You'll also find the monitor output volume control to control the monitor outs on the rear of the device. You will also find a sum to mono button to downmix everything going to the monitors to a single mono mix to check for phase issues. And you will also find a negative 20 decibel dim button to quickly decrease the volume going to the monitors. Then you'll find two channel strips which are the exact same. At the top you will find a gain dial which controls the preamp's gain. Next to that you will find a signal metering light which will blink bright red if you end up clipping. You'll find the phantom power on-off button for each individual track. You'll find a negative 20 decibel pad, a 75 Hz high pass filter, and lastly an Aphex optical compressor. Then on the front of the device, you will find a 1/4-inch headphone output, which unfortunately during my tests does not offer zero latency monitoring, so you will have to monitor through a DAW, which will introduce at least some latency. Then you'll find two 1/4-inch high impedance DI inputs to connect instruments direct to the interface. Then on the back of the device, you'll find a set of locking XLR ports to connect your microphones to the device. You'll find a set of 1/4-inch balanced outputs to connect your monitors to the interface. You'll also find SPDIF in and out to connect to an external preamp or run this to a headphone amp. You'll also find a MIDI in and out port as well as a power on and off switch, which is very welcome. You'll find the USB 2.0 port to connect it to your computer, and lastly you will find the DC power port, which is required to run this interface. Then as far as the specs, this thing records in up to 24-bit 192 kilohertz. It has a gain range of 38 decibels, but you could argue that it's 58 if you include the negative 20 decibel pad, and you also have plus 48 volts of phantom power, and right here I will include some of the other specs in case you want to pause it and read what it offers. Okay, now I'm speaking into the Rode NT1, and the Aphex IN2's channel strip is set to completely flat, and this is how the audio sounds. And now I've initialized the 75 Hz high pass filter, and this is how the audio sounds and how it helps at reducing some of that proximity effect. Okay, we are back on the flat mode, and this is how it sounds. And now I've initialized the Aphex optical compressor on this channel, and this is how the audio sounds now. And I should note that this compressor is supposed to be very transparent and subtle and not do much to color the audio. It's just meant to let you drive the preamp a little bit more with a reduced risk of clipping. Now I've cranked the gain on the preamp to really start hitting that optical compressor hard and forcing it to engage to show you what kind of characteristics and what kind of tone this compressor has when you're really driving it hard, and this is how it sounds. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure the noise floor of this interface using a method that's demonstrated in Julian Krause's video, which I will link in one of the upper corners. Now, in order to really test the preamps of the Aphex IN2, I have connected the SM7B, which is a notoriously quiet microphone with a sensitivity of almost -60 decibels. I've increased the gain to 100%, and on my meters, I'm hitting between -9 and -15 decibels. Nothing else on the channel strip is turned on, and this is how the audio sounds. Now, when we have a sample rate of 48 kilohertz and an I/O buffer size of 64 samples, we have a round-trip latency of 7.7 milliseconds and a 3.5 millisecond output. When we jump to 128 samples, we have 10.5 milliseconds round-trip, or 4.5 milliseconds output. And then when we jump up to 256 samples, we have 15.5 milliseconds round-trip, or 7.5 milliseconds output. Jumping up to 192 kilohertz with an I/O buffer size of 64 samples, we have a 6 millisecond round-trip latency and a 2.5 millisecond output. When we jump up to 128 samples, we have a round-trip latency of 6.6 milliseconds and a 2.5 millisecond output. And then when we jump up to 256 samples, we have an 8 millisecond round-trip latency and a 3.3 millisecond output. Now I'm going to test the DI inputs of this interface by plugging a Gibson Les Paul Studio with passive pickups, as well as a bass with active pickups direct into the device. Then I will go ahead and play back the raw DI track, then with an amp simulator, and then in a full mix. Okay, so I'm a little bit confused by this interface because it has so much going for it, but it seems like they left off a pretty important feature. But first up, in terms of pros, I like the fact that they included converters that go up to 24-bit 192 kilohertz. I also like that they included their optical compressor, which is just a really nice feature to have, even if the feature is a little bit limited. I also love the fact that they have phantom power on and off switches for each individual channel. On the note of on and off switches, I love that they have an on and off switch for the interface. That's something that I think every single interface should have. Additionally, the headphone amp on this thing is insanely loud, so you should have no problem driving any headphones. And the noise floor is pretty good, even though it does have some treble frequencies below 150 Hz. And then in terms of cons, the main glaring issue that I have with this thing is the complete lack of zero latency monitoring. That is something that I also think that every single audio interface should have, and this does not have that. I also think that at this price point of $200, the preamps are lacking a little bit in the gain department, where the max gain is probably around 45 to 50 decibels. It's just not where I want it to be. And to get nitpicky, I am just personally not a fan of small audio interfaces that require an external power supply. And now, would I recommend this interface? I am very reluctant to say this, but no, not really. With that being said, I think the interface does have a lot going for it with the optical compressor, the individual phantom power on and off switch, the interface as a whole having an on and off switch, the PDIF in and out, as well as the high pass filter. All of those are amazing features that I wish more interfaces at this price point had. Now, if you are using a condenser microphone, I don't think that the preamps are of concern to you because they have plenty of power for that. But if you're driving a dynamic microphone, especially a gain-hungry dynamic like the SM7B, I just don't think that the preamps cut it. But the main turnoff for me on this interface is that one thing that I think every single audio interface needs, and that is zero latency monitoring. And this device does not have that, and I don't know how they released a product without zero latency monitoring. It just makes no sense to me. But I do want to point out that if you don't care about zero latency monitoring and you're always going to be running it through a DAW and adding some effects onto it, then sure, I would recommend it because it does have a lot going for it. It just has a few limitations that for me personally are deal breakers. Alright, well that is going to do it for today. Quick side note for you guys, I may not be doing as many microphone reviews in the coming weeks and months because I may have been getting some noise complaints from a terrible person named Cheryl. So I'm going to get caught up on audio interface as well as shotgun microphone reviews because I don't do guitar amp tests for those. And don't worry, I am working on a solution so I can get back to reviewing microphones in my normal fashion. Don't worry, I am not going anywhere. So if you found this video fun, interesting, or helpful, thumbs up. Hated it, thumbs down. Want more videos? Go ahead and subscribe. You can hang out in the Discord server. I'll throw a link in the description, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye.